Hello there, Delicious. It is the Delicious Recap, your weekly revisit of the 90s sitcom Family Matters. I am Jon Francois and Andrew Vandertunt. Who are you this week?
I'm Joan Crawford.
Joan Crawford.
I'm Joan Crawford. She's amazing. She's the doll face, and we love her.
So that's the co-star of Betty Davis in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, right? That's not actually
Yes,
Betty Davis.
yes.
All right,
Joan Crawford is the star of that movie.
got it. I was actually wondering if you were going to get that reference because Mama Winslow, she does dress as Betty Davis from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And if I remember anything about Betty Davis, she was just this, like both on and off screen, she just had this like crazy villainous diva like thing about her. I feel like she was like a queer icon ahead of her time.
She is, and she was. If I didn't know the reference of that, every gay person that I know would have been like, "You're not gay." Like, it was a lie the entire time. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. So what makes Joan Crawford better than Betty Davis in that movie?
Because it's Joan Crawford.
I don't know too much of Joan Crawford's work. I mean, maybe I've seen little things of her here and there, but I'm more familiar with Betty Davis's persona.
It's definitely Joan Crawford. She is amazing. And we have a reference for life of no more wire hangers that have generated from this one film. If you don't know that reference, I just encourage you to Google it.
I feel like I've watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane back in like high school. I need to see it again because I feel like it has that Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, crazy white people in a black and white film, toxic kind of energy.
Yes, this is what like it was reality TV. That movie was reality TV. It truly was, and you guys you'll see it. It's amazing.
I love it. Well, we're talking about Family Matters, season 2, episode 7, Dog Day Halloween. Speaking of other classic movie references, Dog Day Halloween references the Al Pacino crazy robber movie, Dog Day Afternoon. I don't think I've ever seen it. I've seen like little clips of it. How about you?
I've never seen it. I've never seen, I think, any Al Pacino movie except Scarface. Was he in Scarface?
Yeah, he was Scarface. Scarface, The Godfather, Scent of a Woman, Glenn Ross. You haven't seen any Al Pacino movies?
That last one is just a bunch of names put together. That's not a movie. Stop trying to joke with me.
Yeah, just trying to say it is a tongue exercise in itself, so I don't blame you. Glenn Ross. There you go. There you go. I got it. But yeah, no, I mean, but it looks like you've seen Scarface, though.
I've seen Scarface. Like, you're not black if you haven't seen Scarface, is
Pretty
what
much.
I've been told. Like, you have to watch this movie, apparently. But I've seen Scarface. I've seen parts of The Godfather because I talked about the orange in the mouth. But aside from that, it's out there.
Forgot that. Is that like Marlon Brando as the Godfather having an orange in his mouth? Because he does have like the face, like the cotton balls that he put in his cheeks as Vito Corleone. It does have like a very orange facial expression thing about it.
I'm probably confusing this with another movie where an old man died with an orange peel in his mouth, but I thought that was The Godfather.
Yeah, you mentioned that scene before where he dies and he has an orange in his mouth. Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, looking at Marlon Brando's face in that movie, it just looks like he could be sucking on an orange. So that's where I got the association from.
You orange sucker.
That is a backyard school insult if I haven't heard one.
That is, or a political one. I kind of like it.
All right. Well, this episode, original air date October 26, 1990. Obviously, it's a Halloween episode. Written by Fred Fox Jr. and David Duclin or Duclon. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but I feel like Gary Goodrich, who recently was on our show to talk Family Matters, I think he said Duclin.
I think you said Dukeland. That's what I'm going with. I hope that we're saying it right.
All right. Garen Keith directed the episode. Guest stars, we have Doris Hess as Marcy, who I think is one of the bank tellers.
Yes, the bank teller with the witch hat on.
There you go. I figured. I mean, the other bank tellers kind of said something. Maybe one of them said something, but yeah, not as much as Marcy. Barry Jenner, your favorite Lieutenant Murtaugh, he returns for another episode in a row. Wow, didn't expect this one. Randy Jocelyn as Rodney Beckett. I totally thought he was just season one and done, but I just remembered, like, in watching this episode again. Oh yeah, Rodney appears for a brief moment in this one.
He does come back.
That's all you have to say. Nothing positive or effusive about it. You're just like, yeah, he's there.
He exists in that time frame, and he's there.
And our very own beloved Mark Nasser, who we had the pleasure of having on not too long ago during our season 1 recap process to talk about his experience as the robber in this Dog Day Halloween episode. And the interview is still up wherever you get your podcast. So please listen to that because Mark gives you some great insight into what it was like doing Family Matters.
Yes, very fun interview. You learn about some background stuff. And Mark is just fun.
Yes, he's a load of crackers, as I like to call him, because I just literally made that up right now. It's been a day, Andrew. It's been a day. He's a load of delicious Ritz crackers. I'll say that.
Okay, I will go with that because I love a good Ritz.
There you go. Oh, hey, how about we have the rating system? So explain that, and if you want, you could leave the delicious stars explanation to the end of the episode. But the rating system that we do during our recap.
So we are going to talk about the show and the basis of it being a meal. Let's say at a restaurant. So we got our beginning of it, which is your appetizer, whatever drew you into this episode. Do you like it? Your entree, your main course that filled you up and sustained you throughout the 30 minutes of this watch. Your dessert, those little tidbits that just draw you in. And you just want to just eat them just to your heart's content. And then your junk food, all the stuff that you can just throw away. Just get rid of it. It's not needed. We're really looking at what this is delivering to us.
Absolutely. All right. Shall we get into the cold open where Carl and Harriet are setting up decorations for the trick-or-treaters coming to their house? What are your thoughts?
So this cold open, I was actually very happy with it because it's the only time we see Rodney.
That's the only reason. You wanted to get just a little niblet of Rodney and then be gone with him. All right, I got you.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, this piece of shit kid is back as Eddie's friend. Let's get him out of here real quick. He does not need to be here for the rest of the episode. And I like it. It was a great little dose of Rodney.
Okay. So Eddie and Rodney, they eventually enter in this cold open. I think it all starts off with Harriet saying something to Carl about making sure the house is scary enough for the trick-or-treaters coming by. And Carl was saying something like, oh, well, they should just see Judy's room. That's scary. And I found that confusing because I felt like that would have been more appropriate for Eddie. Like, Eddie seems like he would be the messy child, and Laura and Judy would seem to be okay with cleanliness.
I would imagine Judy being the dirtiest child because she's the youngest. Like, I'm not going to say dirty, the most unclean child. Like, I imagine her room is stuffed with toys. Everything's on the floor. You don't know what's under 3 layers of clothing. That's what I imagine from a little kid her age.
Really? I don't know. I mean, Judy has always seemed to me, from fashion to the cutesy way she carries herself, it just seems like she is a little goody two-shoes. So that would be interesting if she kind of surprises me with a big shit show of a big shit show. And speaking of shit,
she can get away with it because she's the baby.
Oh, that's
true. She can get away with it. She's like, I don't care. My room's going to be a mess. And no one's going to say anything about it. Because Judy knows she runs that household.
Until end of season 4, when we realized that, the messy room, it came back to bite you.
They overthrew the queen.
Well, in my notes, I wrote down Rodney's back, exclamation point, and I was just surprised by him. And you know what? He's part of my appetizer. And not in so much oh my God, I love Rodney so much. So Eddie and Rodney, they come in with their Halloween costumes. Eddie, I would say, dressed fantastically as Frankenstein. They did a great job with the makeup, the costuming, the height on him. It could have been Eddie's naturally tall height, or maybe they gave him a few more inches as Frankenstein. I don't know. But not only is Rodney only in the cold open, but Eddie is also only in the cold open. And I thought it was like such a sad waste of a great costume to only have it be included in this scene.
Yes, his costume and makeup was perfect. That's my only other note for the scene that I found valuable is that Eddie's makeup as Frankenstein was so good. I wanted it throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, it really was. And Rodney was dressed up as Don King. You remember Don King, the boxing promoter, with the legendary the afro that is pointed upwards, the sort of salt and pepper afro pointed upwards as if he had a hurricane blow through him. And I don't know, I just found it interesting that the race thing wasn't mentioned. It was like, oh, hey, isn't it funny how Rodney is white and he's dressing up as as a black boxing promoter. I mean, thankfully there was no blackface, but I just felt like, especially when Rodney told the Winslows, the parents, that he was Don King, and the audience was laughing, I figured like, oh, maybe there's like an undertone of like, haha, you're not the right race for that.
There probably could be. I liked that this is a proper display. If you are not that race, how to do that race. It was perfect. Like, this should be like a master class in, hey, I want to be somebody who happens to be African American and I'm white. How do I do that without being racially offensive? And they nailed it.
They did. They did. He didn't do it. He didn't do a black scent. And Rodney, I will say thumbs up to you about that. What I will say, I found a common thread here because Don King was not known as the greatest boxing promoter. Rodney's not known as the greatest friend. So maybe there was a hidden meeting that those Family Matters writers were putting in there.
I can see that. It's funny. I was literally just watching a show that had a whole section about Don King in it. And yeah, that's perfect to like put it that way, that little stamp of this person isn't perfect, but I guess it kind of mirrors their friendship because he's always getting Eddie into trouble.
Yeah. And I think he wasn't he an influence in, Eddie and Rodney being the guys who are going to go out and make hell and throw toilet paper and eggs and all that stuff to people's houses, because I think shortly before Eddie and Rodney's entrance, Carl was like, oh, here we go. He has his police uniform on. Another night of, trying to get kids to not throw eggs at houses. And then Eddie and Rodney walk in and to talk about doing that exact thing. Now, I get eggs and toilet paper, but I think along the way, Eddie and Rodney were talking about throwing soap. And I have never heard that before. Is that a thing where people throw soap as well?
They're not going to throw the soap. You're going to take the soap and wipe it on people's doorknobs. It makes their doorknobs very slippery.
Oh, I had never heard that. Okay. I was just thinking that like nobody's going to take showers and we're just going to throw soap and just watch it mush on people's houses.
No, I mean, if you have mushy soap, that would probably be really fun. I would do that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, if we have nothing else for the cold open, you want to get into scene one?
Yes, let's get into it.
All right, your thoughts. I mean, we're back into the living room, and Rachel, Mama Winslow, and Laura, they seem to be coming back from Halloween shopping here to start us off. What are your thoughts about this first scene?
I love this scene because I love Halloween shopping. I love costume shopping, so the excitement was palpable.
Yeah.
I love like a good costume shop where you get like a costume. So that's was like a little callback to my childhood. So this was a fun little opening with all of them and playing with Harriet in her face, how Laura gets a great costume. Rachel's going to be a sexy Rapunzel. Mama Winslow's going to be Baby Jane. And Harriet's just going to be the Humpback of Notre Dame. And great.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yeah, so Laura, I think coming in to this scene, Laura, she has like this orange pantsuit top on, which I thought already put me in the Halloween mood. And then she had that definitive black teenager ponytail. I don't even know what you call that. What is there a specific name to that hairstyle? Because it seems so 90s.
I don't know. I was like, she's got a cute little bun or something.
Yeah, it was really great. And yeah, we talked about the Betty Davis, whatever happened to Baby Jane. Mama Winslow is going to be that. And the audience, there was a little bit of laughter from the audience. So I think some might have gotten the joke that, like, wow, Mama Winslow is going to be like this creepy old-timey movie character. And to your point about Harriet being the Hunchback of Notre Dame, I found it confusing at first because it was established that Rachel, like, picked out the costume for Harriet, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I have never seen that happen. I figured that people took such personal ownership in their selection of a Halloween costume. Like, would you trust somebody else to pick your costume?
No, never. I wouldn't trust somebody to pick my water. I don't trust people. But I have shopped for other people because there are people who are like, just go buy me something.
Yeah, and then they're like Harriet when you bring in the thing, and it's like, oh, wait, what? Ew. Like, Harriet just wasn't in love with the Hunchback idea. And I'm like, well, Harriet, that's what you expect when Rachel, of all people, is being trusted to a Halloween costume shop for you.
I mean, in this scenario, I'm on Rachel's side. Rachel did the right thing by still getting Harriet a costume. And Harriet probably has a very common size. And when you are out Halloween costume shopping, there's a limited selection. So if you don't come, we kind of just got to get you what you can get.
And I think Rachel was telling Harriet, like, oh, it's between Hunchback or Leatherface. Did not know who Leatherface was until I looked it up from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I'm sad to say I've never seen like the older ones, like the 70s ones. I've only seen like more recent versions, but Leatherface is in the more recent ones, right?
Leatherface is the father of one of my children. He's a very, very good man. And I don't like people slandering his name, saying that he massacred these people. They entered his home and disrupted his property. With that being said, I have seen every single movie from the 70s on upwards. Leatherface is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So you can't have a movie without Leatherface.
Got it. Okay. So Leatherface, you are Team Leatherface all the way. Yeah, I have it here that he's a mentally disabled member of a family of deranged cannibals featuring his face masks and chainsaw. So he's quite the guy.
That is such a PG way of putting it. I love that description. Oh
Well,
my God.
thank Wikipedia.
Wikipedia did a very succinct way of wrapping that up. Like, if you haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not going off on a rant, it's a great movie franchise. The very first movie, the last 20 minutes of it is just a woman screaming. So be prepared for that. But it is scary. It is terrifying. And only except one of them have I seen that I did not like.
All right, I'll definitely have to look at it. I believe Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist, two movies both released in 1974, and they went on to become such iconic pieces of horror movie culture.
They really did. They're really good. And if you like some gore, go put on a little Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. I don't know if I had mentioned earlier that my appetizer was Eddie's Frankenstein costume and Rodney's sort of the racial undertoning of him being Don King. My main course is actually starting in this scene, and it's actually going to be a thread all throughout. So Carl is looking around the house, saying he needs something to make the house more frightening. Urkel comes in right on cue. A notable, enthusiastic round of applause from the audience. We get some woos. Urkel Mania is here to stay. My main course is the audience throughout this episode. Have you kept track of the amount of woos and cheers that were happening?
There was a lot. I knew from the moment Steve walked in, I'm like, wow, this crowd likes him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they saw some Family Matters episodes as they were waiting for the actors to come out. There was just something about this crowd. They were energetic. They were ready to go. It could have been just like, oh, it's Halloween time in Los Angeles, wherever they're taping, and maybe people came in with their costumes and they just have that trick or treat energy. I don't know, but a great crowd, like Mark Nasser says, can really, really, really influence a sitcom episode in the best way possible. So shout out to that studio audience. They're going to be a big presence all throughout.
Oh, the studio audience members. It was good. It did add an energy to the episode. There was energy to this one.
Yep. And I think we also get the first time that Steve says, like, Steve refers to Carl as big guy, because remember he does that peanut brittle, what do you call it? Trick snake prank. Just has Carl blown up in his face with those trick snakes, and he's like, "Ah, gotcha, big guy." And I think that's the first time we get that.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard it at any other point. This is the first establishment of that phrase.
Yeah. And my only other note about this scene was just loving Steve and Estelle laughing at Carl's expense, because it just reminds me of their adorable grandmother-grandson chemistry.
Yeah, their energy is cute. That was like a little tidbit for me. My dessert for this scene was just the discussion of Baby Jane, because it's still something I really, really love.
I really was worried that you wouldn't get that. I'm so glad that you know that reference. Anything else you had for this scene?
No, that was it. That was it for the scene, because this episode flows in such a good pace that I got to the next scene pretty fast.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, this was a nicely paced episode. I agree. So scene 2, we get right to the bank where Laura and Steve, they're making their deposits and they're in their Halloween costumes. What do you have you have thoughts about this? Because I know Laura is dressed as Tina Turner and Steve is dressed as Superman.
Laura's costume is so freaking cute. It is cute. Her wig is cute. Everything about Laura's costume is cute. The costumes for a few people in this episode are just my dessert. And Laura is my dessert in this scene.
I will have to say the Tina Turner costume came off a little suggestively dressed for me, just a little bit. The Laura was definitely showing some leg, and I didn't know how to feel about that because I was like, oh, I think you're like 12 or 13. Don't know how to feel about that. And just like the Laura's First Date episode, the audience was wooing as Laura came into the bang dressed as Tina Turner. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. Because like, we know how those woos are in 90s sitcoms. They could be very suggestive and she's a child, and it was a little bit icky for me, to be honest with you.
I am surprised of the dress design. I am surprised that. Now, it's not something I was thinking about during the episode because I'm just like, oh my God, Laura's in costume and it's super fucking cute. And what got me was from neck up, her face was beat. They did a great job on her makeup and the hair was just on point. So I was just like, yeah, she just looks amazing. But the crowd, yeah, when you hear the woos, I'm always a weirded out person when I hear woos because it's like, ooh, ethnic kiss sound. Let's implant it here. And I'm like, we don't need that right now.
Oh man. And yeah, I mean the crowd energy, it continued especially continued when Steve made his grand entrance as Superman, the audience giving him a louder round of cheers and woos than the last scene. And I'm almost wondering if this is a different audience than the last scene because they're almost greeting Urkel as if they didn't just see him a scene ago.
I that. Wow, maybe they did switch audiences. Maybe this was multiple scenes cut together.
Yeah. Again, the audience energy is going to be a common thread throughout this episode. Laura did her little titty shimmy dance as Tina Turner, and I don't know if that's what you call it. We could call it something else because again, she's a child, but that happens when Steve like calls Laura Lois Lane, and Laura of course corrects him by saying that she's Tina Turner. And yeah, it's just like, okay, first of all, maybe a little bit more of Tina Turner stuff than I do. I've seen lots of footage of Tina Turner dancing. Has she done that titty shimmy dance before? She has. Okay.
Yeah.
And am I wrong that it, like, the point of it is that it focuses on like the titties? It's like, oh, hey, no, that's not the point of it. Okay. What is the point of it?
So the dress that Tina Turner had on when she did that dance had tassels on it. So the tassels moved with the movements of the shimmy. I'm trying to think what performance it was. She did it live on stage. And the dress is freaking gorgeous, by the way. It literally looks like diamonds are showering this woman when she does her dance. And rolling on a river. That's the name of the song that she wore the dress for. And that's what Laura was doing.
Got it. Now, when you said tassels, isn't that the things that strippers put on their nipples, or no?
Well, I mean, you can have different types of tassels. That's like a pasty tassel, something like that. Or you can have like multiple tassels, almost like how fringe looks, something like that.
Okay. I don't know. I've seen that kind of dance before, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, it shows me that you can dance, and it also shows me that I'm supposed to be like hypnotized by your titties. And when I saw Laura doing it, I'm just like, no, not your prepubescent titties. I don't want that.
Well, maybe me as a gay man, I just don't notice titties.
Okay.
I don't know.
It could be that. It could be that. Anyway. Oh my God. And the audience, these woos again. I mean, when Steve was like, oh, what's wrong, my little top 40 goddess? The audience was wooing that line. I'm like, why? What? Did you notice that?
Yeah, the woo was weird there because I'm like, okay, I guess we're celebrating that Tina Turner's in part of the top 40, but the woo? I get it.
Yeah, it was strange. So then, Steve and Laura, they're in the line to deposit their very small paycheck. And they get to the two, I think there were two tellers in a row that were rejecting, like, taking a deposit from Steve because they were just like, I don't want any of this annoying nerd nonsense. Can they legally do that?
I mean, if it's your break time, I'm going on break. I'm closed.
It might have been closing time, actually, because I think it was like nighttime.
It was night, and you know what? That would be perfectly fine. I don't think it's illegal to do that as long as there's somebody there to help. And that's why the girl was like, I didn't get my sign in time.
Yeah. And, oh my God. I don't know. I just figure like, oh, if it's like still like business hours time, no matter how annoying the nerd is, you might get like a little talking from the boss about that. But hey, that's Family Matters. Suspension of disbelief. Um, and the audience doing a woo again. They were like, woo, when Steve was doing his little check deposit dance and song to the tune of Old McDonald, like, watch the moolah grow. Like everybody was just like, woo, woo. I was like, okay, maybe Steve was doing his classic hip thrusting in that, and people were turned on.
Maybe there had to be something. I happened to hit the mute button on my TV at that point, but I have a feeling there was some reason they liked about it.
So was it? Did you hit the mute button because of this? Because of Steve singing, or because you're annoyed by the audience wooing?
It was Steve saying I did not find that fun at all. I remember I hit the mute button. I was like, oh, okay, we'll take a break for that.
Can I ask you? Did you watch this episode like really early in the morning, where when you were just like starting to wake up and everything?
I watched this episode at nighttime and in the morning. I watched it before I went to bed the other night, and then I rewatched it this morning, and I was like, yeah, let me hit the mute button.
Yeah, yeah. You look, Urkel can be a little bit strong at times. I totally get you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, what did you think about $11? Clearly meaning a lot more in 1990 than it does in 2024. Because I think Steve went in to deposit an $11 check from work, and I'm like, wow. So I guess it kind of makes sense because I looked it up. 1990, the minimum wage was $3.80 an hour. But even then, I mean, I don't know. Like, granted, that's if I'm doing the math correctly, 3 to 5 hours of work, $11. Like, wouldn't he be taxed? So
He would still be taxed, but for him, his wage could technically be lower because he's a waiter. So he may have been making a little less than that and then not getting tips, or he's breaking all the stuff for Rachel's and Rachel is charging for it.
that's true. That's true. Now, how did you feel about Steve requesting that his $11 be split into like 4 or 5 different accounts? Like, should that even be legal? Like, oh, $2 in my IRA, $1 in my Christmas club.
I would have been like, Steve, you have to fill out a form. Just give me the form. That would have just been like, okay, I just need a form, please. Just put it in paper in front of me.
Yeah, I feel like if it's $20 or less, like motherfucker, put all of that into one account. I'm not gonna break that down for you. I'm sorry.
You know what? I'm with you there. If it's something so tedious where it's like, I don't know what to do with my last dollar, okay, I'm not helping you. Just,
Yeah,
it's going to your savings.
yeah. Our lovely Mark Nasser comes in as the Lincoln dressed bank robber. And I think in our interview, I had mentioned that you can see. Did you notice like some of Mark's beard got unglued as he was saying, "Oh, nobody move."
You just see this patch just moving up and down in free space, and I just laughed. I kept laughing when I saw it.
And oh, not only that, this is what I noticed this time watching this episode. There was something strange that fell from the ceiling, like when the camera cut to a shot of Steve, Laura, and the tellers putting their hands up. Did you notice that?
No,
Yeah, it was like some weird, strange, sort of silver rubbery thing that just dropped from the ceiling onto the ground. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like a part of a stage light.
maybe. Oh my God, we need to know.
Seriously, we do. Um, and then, oh yeah, the robbers. What did you think of that running joke where he mistakes Laura for another iconic woman of color singer? Like, oh, Aretha Franklin. No, it's Tina Turner. Like he just does that all throughout.
That is the best part of this episode for me.
Really?
It is literally the gem of all gems. It's probably my highlight of my dessert. I'm gonna keep giving some desserts here because there's these tasty morsels, and I love when people purposely call things or people the other names because
Okay.
I do it all the time. I do it all the time, and I love it. So, boom, give it to me.
And I was surprised by how many women of color singers he could mention. He was mentioning Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, Patti LaBelle. I'm like, wow, Shaka Khan got a reference in there. Um, I mean, I found it to be some classic, like, oh, white people thinking that black people look all the same kind of thing. But yeah, I could also see how it could be taken funnily.
It's like it's a joke maybe that me and my friends have had for years, And it's just something I've always done, where I'm going to call you something else, even though I know exactly who you are, just because it gets under people's skin, but it's also funny. And Laura's responses to it, just her deadpan response, made it even more funny.
Yeah, for sure. Um, oh, the when the robber gives like Steve his bag for the money to fill it, he's like, "Oh, fill it," and then Steve says in a nervous, quiet tone, "With money." Love that moment.
I I love that only about $4 went into that bag.
Yeah, that was my dessert. That was my dessert. I will get to that. That was just so fucking hilarious. Um, so again, the audience is doing the woos that don't make any sense. They were wooing when Steve was clumsily attempting to get around the bank customer line gate thing to like behind the teller desk so he could get the money. I'm like, guys, I know you love this episode. What is sexy about that?
I had to rewind it because I thought I was watching something else when I heard woos instead of laughs.
Oh my God, I can't get around to this gate. Woo! Take it off, Daddy. Like, what is going on?
I feel like somebody may have instructed them like woo or be astonished or something because it was such an odd response. And when I was looking, I was like, isn't this supposed to be funny?
It should have been, but I don't know. That audience was had their Urkel love bug in their system. So I think the robber, he was forcibly flipping Steve over to the like back of that teller desk, and I thought he dropped Steve to the ground pretty forcibly. I almost thought like, oh my God, is Steve's face okay? Like it seemed like he dropped head first, and his face was almost broken.
He made a loud thud. It was very noticeable.
Yeah, and this fucking dessert that I thank God that you mentioned. So let's just walk us through this. So Steve is taking his time with putting the money in the bag. He's asking the robber if he would like penny wrappers. Robber loses his patience, shoots the gun to the ceiling, and Steve very quickly and nervously attempts to put the money in the bag. We can clearly see all the dollar bills just like flying in the air frantically. The robber's just taking the bag as if there's lots of money in there. You say $4, I would say nothing. Like literally nothing went into that bag, and it was just hilarious to me.
It was hilarious. That was the highlight of that moment. Steve did it perfectly. Mark's reaction to grabbing this bag like it was full of money was so funny to me because he clearly grabs all of it and just crinkles in his hands, and I just laughed.
Yeah. And maybe it was intentional. Maybe it was the production staff's way of saying this is a very not great robber. It's a sitcom, so that could happen. My only last thing about this scene was when the robber runs out. He sees the cops. Like we already heard the sirens moments ago. So the robber runs out. He hears the cops, saying, "Hey, put your hands up." And then the robber comes back in and basically keeps everybody hostage in the bank. My only question, like when the cops are coming in contact with the robber that first time and they see the robber going back inside, wouldn't the cops' immediate reaction, shouldn't it supposed to be like running after him or taking a shot, God forbid? Like, I don't know. I just felt like it was a weird picture in my head of like, oh, the cops see this robber come out and then the robber comes back in and then the cops are like, all right, let's just wait for him to come back out.
So I can see the logic behind it of why that would be options you could go to. But with protocol for cops arriving to bank robberies or any suspect, you never just chase them back inside to a building when you don't know what's inside that building. And then the other side, if you shoot directly into the bank, you're probably going to hit somebody innocent. And that could be even worse.
Okay. Yeah. Because I figured since you worked, you did call center work for 911. So I figured you would know that. Any other thoughts you got about this scene?
No, this scene was a little nice to see both.
Yeah, and we continue back into the drama within the bank. Scene 3, we start outside of the bank where Carl and Lieutenant Murtaugh, the whole police crew, they're got the map pulled up, the lights are on, the sirens, blah blah blah. They're trying to figure out a plan to get the hostages safe and get this robber arrested. What's your thoughts about this scene 3?
Lieutenant Murtaugh's scene is amazing. I screamed when he walked up and said, "Who's in charge here?" I just lost it. I laughed. It's the funniest joke that he has said so far, and I hope we get more of him this season.
I found it interesting that he was more nervous and sweaty, and we just got introduced to him last episode. Like here he is, he's slightly nervous, sweaty, he doesn't really know what to do, even though he should know he's the one in charge. And here's Carl, who clearly has his head on his shoulders and is like, all right, Lieutenant, this is what we do and this is what we're not going to do. I just thought of it as an example of white privilege. I just thought, you know what, there probably are a lot of situations where you look at a white man in a superior position and the black man is in an inferior position, and the black man is looking at the white man like, yeah, you are very incompetent, I could do your job for you.
Because I've been around law enforcement in past work experiences, I know for a fact that Lieutenant Murtaugh is an accurate portrayal of what it is to be a lieutenant or high-ranking officer that does not leave your office to go interact with the real world.
Really?
It is 100% accurate.
Oh my God. I thought it was just Family Matters being I don't know, just kind of exaggerating, but this is what it's like in the real world. Wow.
100%. 100%.
Holy crap. So did you notice as Carl reveals to Murtaugh about info he got from the bank manager, you see the manager walk behind with his chicken costume on. That manager must have done like the saddest walk ever. I just felt like that manager was like, I was looking forward to a night of trick-or-treating, and this is what it's become.
Okay, so I did not notice the bank manager the first 2 times I watched it. It wasn't until the third time. Because right after that, Murtaugh says, I think I may need to move my money. And I screamed every time I watched that. And I was not paying attention to the chicken cup.
Yeah, because I think I don't know. Yeah, to leading up to that line, I think it was something in reference of like just how they were going to get around to the bank and get to the robber and whatever. And I guess Murtaugh just thought of it as like, oh God, like, you know, if this robber situation's happening, I need to move my money, especially if a bank manager wants to dress up like a chicken for Halloween. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was like Lieutenant Murtaugh's way of being like, oh God, chicken, weak, hello. Meanwhile, this guy's like super sweaty and clumsy and doesn't know what to do.
It's the privilege. It's the privilege. And it's so funny. That joke sent me because I could see myself seeing something happening and then looking at somebody like, I wonder if they're going to keep their money in this bank after this. And I just laughed so hard.
Yeah. Remember, like, how about when Murtaugh was like ready to go guns a-blazing, go in there and just make hell. And Carl's just like, no, sir, let's make appropriate contact with the suspect. Let's assess the situation first. We're not trying to just have a bunch of dead hostages here.
So in this moment, Carl is a literal portrayal of what we want police enforcement to be, about de-escalation, going in calmly, nobody getting hurt. Murtaugh is the current type of policing we have in the world where it's like, go in there and bust them up, boy.
Oh, he's a metaphor. Oh, God, he's a metaphor. And the actor who played him died in 2016, I think, kind of in the middle of this whole sort of criticism of those in the police force. So, yeah, that's very fitting. And Murtaugh I mean, again, I'm just so shocked, like the macho bravado from the last episode. And now in this episode, the guy cannot even talk on the phone with the robber. He's just like, oh, Carl, you take it.
Another moment. This scene, okay, this is my pan ultimate dessert, y'all. This is my scene. Because when he hands the phone to Carl, did you notice his hand is physically shaking? Like he worked on this expression of nervousness. And again, it's reality of what happens in those situations.
It's insane. Murtaugh, maybe do a little switcheroo. Carl be the lieutenant and Murtaugh be whatever Carl's position is. What is his position? Is he just called officer?
I think he's an officer.
Okay.
No, is he a sergeant? I don't know.
Let's just call him Inferior Officer Winslow.
Inferior Officer Winslow.
Oh, God. All right. So Carl is on the phone with the robber trying to figure out how to defuse this situation. The robber is saying, hey, give me a trip to Disneyland and maybe I'll let these hostages go. And in my mind, I was like, with what money, motherfucker? You have nothing in that bag.
You're not going to spend a thing.
Steve tried to put all the money in the world in that bag. Maybe you got $1 or $2. Unless Disneyland is like 1950s prices, you ain't going anywhere without money in that bag.
He committed. He's like, I'm in for the $4.50 that made it in this bag, and I want to go spend it at Disney.
Yeah. And along this way, I was noticing the running joke the robber is giving to Laura, mistaking her for any other singer except Tina Turner, and he put Paula Abdul in the category. Now, what is your opinion about Paula Abdul in relation to Aretha, Tina, Diana, Shaka? Because I feel like all of them are in their own category of just like powerful voices, just they are forces on stage, they're forces of personality. Paula Abdul, it's like, okay, yeah, like she had some catchy stuff in the early 90s, but would I put her in like the Aretha and Tina category? Like, I don't know. That's just me overthinking, but what were your thoughts?
I I wouldn't put Paula Abdul in a category with them because she's an American Idol judge. So that's why I wouldn't.
She was a popular singer before that, a popular singer and dancer. Sure. That's all you gotta. Okay. So if the American Idol judge thing didn't happen, you think that she would have had a good legacy?
There's a thing about legacy. And it can be explained in many different ways.
Okay.
What Paula Abdul was meant to do in that joke was to make us laugh. And I laughed because I was like, he knows that he's now insulting Laura if he's just taken off the rails.
Yeah. All right. So you are not the biggest fan of Paula Abdul, even though she has been mentioned a few times in the first season. I mean, Eddie has a big crush on her, was seeing that Paula Abdul music video. I don't know if you voiced your discontent for Paula Abdul then.
I mean, she makes music. It's music, and it's out there. It is music like Madonna. It's music. We have it. And Paula Abdul, thank you, because you did dance with Tom and Jerry before, I think, and I thought that was amazing.
All righty. I know what you mean by that. And to close out this scene, the same soft, dramatic violin music that we get to close out. Remember that season opener scene when the Winslows and Urkel, they were seeing the burned down Leroy's? They used that same music to close out this scene when Carl emotionally and sort of stressfully realizes on the phone when Laura gets on the phone that, oh my God, my daughter is one of the hostages.
Yes. That was a moment where it was like, ooh, like we're getting the serious music here, and Laura's getting a lot of the serious music. So I get the feeling she's going to be the one to come out the end of the season as a new character.
Yeah. And also, God, we're only a few episodes in, and I feel like we're getting so many like action, adventure, outdoors, law enforcement being called scenes in Family Matters. It's like, oh man, what are we doing? Some Die Hard shit here?
This is like the after school special version of like Cops is happening right now.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we go back into the Winslow living room where the trick-or-treating is happening. Scene 4. What are your thoughts about this?
My very favorite scene of the episode. I really loved it because we got Harriet and Mom Winslow coming in. Both of their makeups are perfect. Mama Winslow as Baby Jane, whoever did her makeup, I want to hug you because it was like spot on good. And then Harriet as the Hunchback, I was like, okay, I love this already and I want more.
And Mama Winslow's makeup seemed a little subtle to me. I wasn't noticing it more than I was noticing the outfit that she had on. I don't know. There's something about Mama Winslow in a doll's outfit that kind of fascinates me, creeps me out a little bit. It just brings me all sorts of feelings. How did you feel when the clown dressed dad and his kids, one of them dressed like a pirate, the dad just was letting his kids just take all of the candy that Mama Winslow was offering at the front door? And I was literally like to that dad, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Be a parent. Like, you're not supposed to let your kids take all the candy.
So I'm terrible because I'm the uncle who's like,
Of course, you're the fun call. You're the fun call.
I am. I'm like, get as much as you can. Cry if you have to get these people to put more candy in your bag. So I am with that, but I am also of the mind of like, if you're going to stand there, control them. I'm at least going to stand at the end of the doorway so the parents can't see me.
Yeah. And I mean, the dad, like, he was just like, yeah, I guess they cleaned you out. Like, he was just, making it seem like it was just the funniest thing in the world. And then, of course, the door closes and Mama Winslow's just like, "Oh, I should have popped that bozo."
I would have loved to see Mama Wiggle beat that man up just that way.
That would have been great. That would have been great. So I have two thoughts about Harriet's interpretation of Notre Dame, and I want to see like what your thoughts are about that. So she comes down the stairs, of course, she's dressed like the hunchback, who is called Quasimodo, I think, in all the interpretations, right?
I'm not really familiar with the story, but what I did Google, yes.
You've never seen the Disney film?
No, I've never seen that.
So that was my first point, because Harriet's interpretation is very like sort of like a ghoulish, "Oh, I'm the hunchback." And the Disney version that I'm familiar with from 1996, mind you, so Harriet didn't have that to draw from, but it was more of a very vulnerable, like, oh, like, he's just kind of like this scared little kid who doesn't want to be bullied, and he's very different and very insecure about it. But Harriet had a very like, "Oh," like Elephant Man kind of presentation to it that may have been fitting for the previous interpretations of the Hunchback, because like many Disney films, it's based on some kind of fairy tale. So that was the first point. The second point, I was actually kind of grossed out when Harriet, as the Hunchback, said that she found 3 peanut butter cups in Carl's sock drawer.
That's hilarious. I just want to know, was Carl stashing them, or was a mistake that they got put there?
I want you to imagine that warm, stinky dad sock smell next to peanut butter cups, and how they would melt and how they would also smell too, like dad socks.
You probably just described 4 people's fetishes.
Like,
I'm trying to imagine that smell, and I don't want to.
people licking melted peanut butter cups off of dad's feet, or dad's wearing socks.
People do that too. People probably do all of that. Yeah, it's got to be a thing. It's a thing.
It might be. And then eventually we get Rachel, Judy, and Richie coming in. So I think, okay, so Rachel's dressed up as Rapunzel. Judy is Janet Jackson, right?
Yes, Rhythm Nation Janet Jackson. She's like a little Barbie doll.
What did you think about? I loved her outfit. I don't know too much about Janet Jackson in that Rhythm Nation era, but there was just something about it: the hair, the makeup, the earrings, the Christmas of the outfit. I just thought it was great.
If you get a chance, anybody who's listening as well, if you're not familiar with Rhythm Nation, the actual music video, just go to YouTube and put in Rhythm Nation. The dance break of that video is amazing. One, the song is amazing, but it's the costuming and what everybody's wearing. Judy's costume was almost a 100% replica of the music video, and it's good.
I'm not surprised. It just, not even seeing the video, I thought like, oh, wow, that is a really good looking costume. Rachel, maybe because this is my Thelma Hopkins crush, I was like, oh, there's a little bit of cleavage there as Rapunzel. And then little Richie had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles costume. Did you like it?
John, how dare you describe it as meh? That was an amazing Raphael costume. Little Richie ate it.
I guess I'm just comparing it because I know what the actual turtle looks like, and they make it look better in the cartoon. But you know what? It's very hard to replicate a cartoon character's outfit in real life, like exactly. So, maybe I'm biased because I'm not like, sorry, I never grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was just one of those 90s things that I just never watched and never was a part of. So it was just like, they had the budget. They could have gone better.
I can understand it, because the same way you're like, you never watched the Hunchback Disney movie.
Yeah.
Is the same feeling and reaction when I have somebody like say, I was never into Ninja Turtles, because I was obsessed with Ninja Turtles. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So that costume for that time, because costuming back then was a struggle. Ask the drag queens. Everybody looked bad. But it was acceptable. And I love it. And Little Richie as the Ninja Turtle, that's another just slice of cake on my dessert list.
I'm sure you, because you're a Little Richie stan for life. I'm sure you loved his exit line when I think it was when Judy was like, "Oh, look at my Halloween bag. It's empty. Little Richie, why is yours full?" And Richie is just like, "Oh, I guess I'm just cuter." And then he just runs out, and Judy chases after him. You probably like that.
I did. It was great. That is another one of those little dessert things. Judy and Richie stole the scene. Both of them were amazing.
Judy's outfit. I like Judy's outfit. I mean, Little Richie, when he first was introduced earlier this season, I was like, oh, like I was genuinely touched. And now maybe because I've just been cynical and been having bad days lately, but I'm just like, oh, they're just trying to shove this cute child actor down my throat. I'm not having it. That's my feeling.
I get it. It's understandable. It feels like they do use him for that, like, like it's just Little Richie. Like, if anything is wrong in a scene, they're like, give him a line. Tell him to say something and everybody's going to melt.
And you're going to, yeah, and including you, you're going to suck it up all the way.
Oh, yes, I will melt. I'm like, yes, I love this.
My last thoughts about this scene is I thought there were some good sibling rivalry digs between Harriet and Rachel when Rachel was like, Harriet, I'm disappointed in you. I thought you at least try on the hump, as obviously a joke, implying that Harriet's natural back is a hump. And then when Rachel starts to walk away, Harriet steps on her hair, her Rapunzel hair. So I don't know. I just thought that was like some good sibling banter.
It was funny. It was good little banter. The only thing about this scene that I think I didn't like was Rachel's costume. I forgot that she was Rapunzel. I thought she was Phoebe from Friends. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening here?
Well, that wouldn't be possible seeing that Friends didn't debut until 1994. But hey, you know what? We could, in the tradition of white people stealing things from black people, we could say that Phoebe stole her look from Rachel on Family Matters during that Halloween episode.
It was very boho chic, so I think she did.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about this scene?
No, that was it for the scene for me.
What are you thinking about the next scene as we get back to the bank, the drama, the scene of the crime?
Laura's dark humor made me laugh more than I thought I was going to laugh.
I think I know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
When Steve says he's going to take the robber, and Laura's like, he has a gun, and she says, go do it, and I laughed.
Yeah. Oh God. I had a split moment of that. I was like, I'll get to it. But I know what you're talking about. Anything else that you had?
No. That was it for me in this scene, actually.
I found it funny to start off this scene that the robber is keeping everybody hostage, but he's like, hey, I'm giving you pizzas. I'm keeping you hostage, but at least I'm feeding you.
I'd rather be a hostage with a full stomach, so it was a very considerate thing.
I guess a considerate robber is better than an inconsiderate non-robber.
Yeah. Like, I mean, imagine it. Would you want to be robbed by somebody who didn't ask you how you were doing today?
I mean, my focus would be, holy crap, how do I get the hell out of here and away from their gun? But I guess if I'm like held at gunpoint and I'm stuck there, then yes, I'm sure that while he's pointing a gun at me, if he could ask me how my day was, I would be like, yeah, maybe I don't care about being shot today.
You see me as a person. You're like, hey, I know I'm taking your money right now, but what's new in your life? Like something like that. Comfort me as you assault me. We're good. Well, as you rob me, we're good.
As you rob me. I was like, damn, Andrew, getting deep there with the assaulting. Steve, he is quietly. So this, mind you, let me say that this is when I did not know that Steve was dreaming. So Steve was quietly telling Laura that he could take on this robber, and he's had it because the robber wouldn't allow anchovies on the pizza. I thought that was a good callback to Steve's anchovy paste obsession.
We are going to hear anchovies and pizza so many times with Steve, and I still find it funny to this day.
And within this fantasy, as you had mentioned, Laura trying to knock some sense into Steve by saying he's got a gun, and then very quickly says, okay, so I think the order was like, oh, Steve, like, don't do it. Like, you don't stand up to him. He's going to shoot you. You'll die. Do it, Steve. Like, she did it so quickly. I thought she could have taken a little bit more of a pause to build up to that great punchline. But alas, that's what it was. And my second point was, like, I know Steve is annoying, but damn, Laura, to your reference about the dark humor, is he so annoying that he's worth dying?
I mean, Laura saw her shot at freedom. That was a pun. Oh my God, that was good.
Good one.
And she had to take it. But the thing that's more messed up is Steve is the one dreaming this.
Yeah, I mean, look, he wants to be that chivalrous man, and of course, within this fantasy, he's doing that hip thrusting from the last episode. Remember when Urkel was just getting into the idea of taking the fall for Eddie when he crashed the car into the living room? Steve does that same hip thrusting as he's getting ready to take on that robber. The audience is booing because, a tiny 12 or 13-year-old doing hip thrusting. Ooh, God, that's great.
They were ready. It was his wind up to his finale.
Yeah. And then we get, fitting to this fantasy, an unrealistic fight scene where tiny kid Urkel, he's just taken down this adult robber like nobody's business. I mean, Steve is just doing all the karate chop moves, is able to effortlessly knock the gun out of the robber's hand. The robber could easily find a way to get the gun because, he's fighting someone who's like 2 feet tall and has no muscle whatsoever. He's the size of a fucking pebble, but okay, we're going to believe that. And then, yeah, I mean, just as I was like, God, Steve, where was this confidence when the robber first showed up in the bank? Boom. That's when I realized via Family Matters that we were in a fantasy. It was a dream all along.
I had the reaction too of you of like, wait, so did we just waste a whole episode when Steve could have ended this 2 scenes ago? And then I saw he woke up and I was like, oh, okay, we got like a little cutscene. That was cute.
Yeah, yeah. Family Matters. They have such limited time and they decide to waste it a lot of the time. And it's a big difference when Steve goes into reality because Dream Steve is very much like, oh, I'm macho. I can do this. I can hip thrust my way into glory. And sheepish Steve is just like, huh? He's just like nervously walking up to the robber. Excuse me, Mr. Robber, like that kind of vibe. And I think before that, oh my God, there was a funny line before that moment where Steve was like sitting nervously next to Laura and he was just like, oh, I think I can take this guy. I think I could take him. And Laura was like, where to? A movie? Love that line.
Laura and her deadpan in this episode, she's spot on.
Yeah. So Steve, God, I mean, his attempt at taking down this robber was like 2.5 seconds. He just comes up to him, hey, excuse me, Mr. Robber, and Robber's like, sit down, and Steve is like, okay, okay. And what did you think about Jamaican stereotype pizza delivery man Carl coming in, acting as a cover and trying to diffuse the situation?
I was like, we are back at Die Hard all over again. It was so funny but weird. I was like, okay, why did he have to become Jamaican to deliver the pizza?
I was like, I literally tried to look up on Google. I was like, was there like a phenomenon of Jamaican pizza delivery drivers back in the day? Because I've never ever had a Jamaican as my pizza delivery driver.
I don't think I have either. Yeah, I can't remember. No. Oh my God, John.
Yeah. So Carl, like, he has the curly dreads wig on. This is his cover. He's trying to make the robber think he's somebody else, just delivering pizza casually. And Jamaican pizza delivery man Carl tells the robber the pizza is $22, man. And the robber says that the cops are paying, and then Carl says, "Oh shoot, that means there's no tip." And again, I'm like, God, the cop salary was really that bad back then, huh?
They just don't tip. Their salary wasn't bad. They just don't tip.
Why? Because, well, I mean, cops nowadays, I would assume they would make a decent amount of change, but I don't know. I just feel like maybe because I perceive them as like, oh, these guys are saving our lives, there to protect us and save our lives, and maybe they would have the heart to want to tip because they want to contribute to the community. Andrew, I know you're looking at me because we're people of color and we're thinking of the police as like these gods. I know. I know. I don't know. I guess I just have the benefit of the doubt here.
I would love to live in that universe where police officers tip and say good day to you. All of that. That Andy Griffin world, I would love that. That is not what happens.
I know. But hey, there's a callback to that peanut brittle thing, the peanut brittle trick snake blowout prank that Steve gave to Carl a few scenes ago. Because when the robber opens one of the pizza delivery boxes, boom, out comes those trick snakes. And Carl just does whatever karate police officer shit he does to take that robber down. And this is my junk food, Andrew. I wonder what your thoughts were on this. What should have been a celebration for everyone in that room, like, oh my God, we're no longer hostages. We're free. Thank you, policeman Carl. Dramatic music, camera closes in on Urkel as he's sad because he's got to make it all about him. I wasn't the hero that I should have been. Now Laura thinks I'm a coward.
I guess I can qualify that as junk food. For me, I was gonna say that was like the food that fell on the floor in the restaurant. Nobody needed to experience that. It was so, in my notes, I had the same thing. Steve found a way to make this entire scene about himself.
Yeah, it didn't need to be there. Not only was it weird, but it just did not need to be there. We could have just ended on like, hey, hooray, like everybody's been saved. But no, Urkel was just so fixated on this dream of being the guy that saves the day, especially to impress Laura. And because he didn't do that, I guess it doesn't matter that his life was spared. It's just like, oh God, but I could have been the hero. It's like, dude, get out of your own fucking head.
Yeah, like this scenario at the end here, which Steve really destroys the episode into like this of, oh, you should feel bad for me and I'm so sad, and the music plays along with it. I'm like, so we're not going to focus on the fact that all these people were just held at gunpoint and there's actual trauma that we need to address here, as opposed to Steve who just wants Laura to fall in love with him through a robbery that he probably set up. Like, no.
Yeah, lives were at stake here, Urkel. Your non-consensual obsession with Laura, not the most important thing right now. Anything else for this scene?
That was it for me in this one.
I think we're going to our final scene. I think we are going into our final scene. Holy crap, 6 scenes. This is a well-tighted, concise episode. We love that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the living room. Laura, Steve, Carl, they come back from the bank, the scene of the crash. What are your thoughts about this last scene?
Okay, this last scene, this is my final dessert. It was very, very funny. When the two kids are at the house and Mama Winslow puts tomato soup in one of their bags and then pork and beans in the other bag, I laughed so hard.
To be honest, that moment just passed me by because I think I was like thinking of something else or like taking notes on the previous scene. So that happened, huh? Oh my God.
It happens. And then when Laura walks in the door, this is like the cream of the crop of the scene for me. Laura walks in the door with Steve and Carl. Harriet said, like, where have you been?
Yeah.
And Mama Winslow said, we had to give away pork products. And I laughed so hard.
I love that. I didn't even focus on that so much. I was just like, Laura, Carl, say something, because Laura was just being chastised like she was like the bad teenager that was out late at night. Where were you? Where were you? We've been looking for you. And it's like, Laura, Carl, how about you say that she almost could have been killed by gunpoint by a robber at a bank? Like, where was that? I mean, if Laura wasn't able to say something, Carl could have said something.
Yeah, you would think somebody would have said something to be like, okay, chill. Laura is not at fault here, but it's never addressed.
Never addressed. Harry and Mama Winslow. Yeah, Harry and Mama Winslow, they just rip her a new one. They just keep on going as they follow Laura into the kitchen, and that's their exit for this episode. And then we get what's going to be another Steve Carl adorable daddy-son moment that was similar to what we got last episode. What did you think about Steve's whole pity me monologue? Like, oh, Carl, I'm a coward.
So I watched it.
Yeah.
It is my junk food. All of it. All of it in that interaction is my junk food. I don't feel it was needed at all for this episode.
Yeah. I mean, from the moment that Steve made it about him in the ending of that last scene, we could just kind of erase this whole pity me monologue, but it happens. Steve is, talking about like, oh, I felt so cowardly not confronting the robber. When it's really about him wanting to look manly in front of Laura. That's what it's about. Let's just say that. And the only funny thing that I found from that moment was as Steve is going on his boohoo speech, he's like, but then you came in, Carl, with your funny wig and your bad accent.
Leave it to Steve to be shady in the time of trying to get sympathy.
And I think that Jalil's voice is starting to change here because I noticed his nasal nerd delivery. It almost sounded like he had a cold. I don't know if you noticed that in that scene, and I think that is indication of the fact that his childlike voice, his prepubescent voice, is starting to go away. And now he's going to start to have to go up into his nasal register to keep that nerdy delivery because his natural voice is starting to get deeper.
It is. You can tell from last episode and the previous one, his voice has kind of dropped about half a tone, where it sounds different. So you can hear the bass starting to develop in his voice.
Right. Okay, not just one laugh out loud moment. All right, I'm gonna say this is the other one. When Carl is complimenting Steve for, hey, like you were brave not doing anything and just, staying by Laura's side and blah blah blah. And Steve takes into Carl's complimentary sentimental stuff, and as they go in for a hug, Steve goes, "Thanks, man."
Crowd loved it. It's a cute little moment. It's a cute little thing.
Yeah, the crowd especially loved it because did you hear them? They were enthusiastically applauding as Carl and Steve were hugging, and the credits come up, the music comes up, and Reginald seemed to be whispering something to Jaleel as that all was happening. I don't know if you caught that, like as the music and credits were coming up.
I didn't.
I was wondering what happened. I felt like maybe Reginald was like, "Oh, hey, good job. You're a good kid. Good performance." Maybe he said that.
I feel like he whispered in his ear, like, "Get me one of those bagels from craft services." And it just, like, you're closest to craft services, run for it.
Yeah, you're the new star, kid. You have the pull. Do it, damn it. Anything else?
That is it for me. That is the end of the episode. It was a quick, and I think this is like the first time in a while we've just had 6 scenes, right?
In a while. I feel like the Bowl Me Over episode toward the end of last season was the last one I can recall where it just seemed to just go by like that. And this is not a Rich Correll directed episode. So, props to Garen Keith for giving us just a nice, tight, well-paced episode. All right. You want to explain the delicious stars and give us your rating?
Okay, so let's talk about these stars. So our stars are based on a scale of 0 to 3. 0 is the lowest star. It means don't watch this episode. It's not worth your time watching. There was nothing that we really enjoyed in it, and it's something that we're just not going to do again. 1, it's a good episode in its respective season, which means it was fun to watch. We got through the episode. It's there. It's still good. You can go back and check it out. It's not something we're going to recommend right away. 2 stars, it's an excellent episode. It's worth taking the time to watch. And you would probably recommend somebody watch this again. And then our 3rd star, 3, is this episode encompasses everything. So we're looking at the quality of the episode, the line delivery, the emotion, the personality, the vibe, the value of watching this. And is it worth rewatching again and making space to do so?
All right. What do you rate this one?
So this episode for me is 0 stars.
Wow. Savage. Okay. Explain.
So this episode for me is 0 stars because there are some serious problems for me of trying to get into this episode. So anybody, I'm probably going to offend a few people out there. If you like truffles or truffle oil, I'm going to use that as an example to explain this. This episode for me, a Halloween episode in a sitcom, it's like French fries, and it's like McDonald's French fries when they're fresh. They are good. They're delicious. They're crispy. They're so, so good. But then you've got that one person who's like, oh, I'm going to use my sophisticated palate and puts truffle oil on top of those French fries. Truffle oil tastes like ass. And if you put that on delicious French fries, you're not going to want them. And that's what this episode was for me. The truffle oil was Urkel. There was too much Urkel. There was way too much. I did not enjoy the amount of Urkel that we got. Some of the comedy was fun. Some of it was interesting. Most of it, I kind of glazed over because I enjoyed so much of the other cast having the costume moments, the kids coming to trick or treat. Like a Halloween episode, that is what I wanted. We could have had something really good. And unfortunately for me, all of the bank robbery and everything associated with it, I'm going to call it all my junk food. There wasn't anything that I thoroughly actually enjoyed and would want to experience again.
To go back to your truffle oil comment, what is truffle oil? And because you said it tastes like ass, it automatically makes me think of, isn't that Nicki Minaj song called Truffle Butter?
Yes, truffle butter, I think, is when you're getting we got to keep this family friendly. Google that one. But
Wait, I want to know. I want to know. Can you try to explain it in the most appropriate way possible? I mean, if you can, it's fine.
it's, you got a friend who is sitting on your toilet and happens to be using the function of that toilet, and you, as another friend, are on your knees in front of that friend, making their experience on the toilet fun.
Okay, I will look at the online definition for more explicit meaning because I'm now curious about that. Not gonna try it because it sounds disgusting, but now I'm like, whoa, okay.
But truffles and truffle oil, truffle is like this expensive mushroom that people try to find, and like they're worth thousands of dollars. And people are like, oh, truffles are so good. Truffles are so good. To me, eating a truffle tastes like eating a handful of coffee grounds that are soaked in lemon juice. Like, I find the taste to be overwhelmingly and disgustingly unchecked. And people, especially in food restaurants that say it's high class, will be like, oh, we have a truffle oil vinaigrette. And essentially, you're just putting fungus that's mixed with vinegar on your salad. And if you look at it that way, maybe you might look at it how I look at truffles. I just don't find them to be appealing. And people say it's a very refined taste. And people say things are refined when they know they're disgusting, like an IPA beer. Like, we know that's going to taste like vomit, but we're going to drink it because we want to be classy. That is what truffle oil is. It's like, this tastes terrible. You know it tastes bad, but you still put it in your mouth because you're like, this is what the high society eats, the garbage parts of the food. And so,
Yeah. Oh my God. Speaking of beer, you're reminding me of my time in Iowa because the town I was in, Decorah, they were very great on local businesses. And one of the things that they had was like, homemade beer. And as someone who doesn't like beer at all, it was just really awkward, just feeling like I was forced to just try these beers because I wanted to be a part of the culture. But secretly, I was just like, I want some apple juice now.
it's, it's, it's that you want to be a part of the culture. So you eat the truffle oil or you drink the beer, and then you're like, this tastes gross. And that's what I feel like happened in this episode with the production of it. They were like, okay, let's sprinkle Steve on everything. There's a Steve moment in almost every moment here. And we're going to see if it all lands with the audience. The audience was screaming and they're oohing and ahhing and they're like, yeah, success. But as somebody who's viewing it, and I'm like, oh, this could have been really fun. We didn't need as much Steve, or we could at least got Steve out trick-or-treating.
Hmm. All right. I'm going to be a little bit generous. I'll give this a 1. It's not my favorite episode, not at all. I did appreciate the fact that almost the entire main cast had a bit of shine. Steve had plenty, plenty of comic moments from him. Some delightful, others, man, maybe we could do away with. I mean, certainly the dramatic, selfish moment at the end we could have done without. Carl. I think Carl was okay. Yeah, Carl, I think the Jamaican delivery stereotype, because apparently that's a stereotype. You and I have never seen a Jamaican delivery driver who delivers pizza, but okay. That was funny to point out as an example. Mama Winslow, Baby Jane, she will forever live in our memory as a great Betty Davis, Baby Jane. Laura, as Tina Turner, had some great comedic moments, the dark comedy, especially when she wishes Steve dead. That would have been wonderful to actually have Steve dead just to see if Laura would still have that same reaction. Judy's Janet Jackson outfit was spectacular. Harriet as the Hunchback, that was great. So a lot of the main cast had their time to shine, and I was feeling that. And that studio audience, man, they are a big part of what makes this a 1 for me. There is just something, even if the content of the episode is kind of middle of the road, you have an energetic studio audience that is just, they clearly are sounding like they're excited to be there. They're excited for Steve. They're excited for the comedy. They're excited for the sentimental moments at the end. As an actor who used to dabble in theater, and theater being just like a multi-camp sitcom because you're dealing with a live audience at both, that energy of the crowd. I mean, if you have that energy from the crowd, it just really affects your performance. It really makes you feel like you're on top of the world and you want to just give a powerhouse show. And I felt like, there were, people, I could see, whatever you think about the story, I could see a nice effort by the cast to bring on the best show possible. So props to the studio audience for making it a great experience, because they truly are an important part of the sitcom experience. And, would I watch it again for fun? Not really, but as a show of like, oh, here's a great example of cast members getting their shine, and here's a great example of how to be a perfect sitcom studio audience, I would put this episode right up there.
I can see that. Okay, I can see that a lot. Would you say later Halloween episodes, if you can recall them now, are better, or do you think they follow along the same story track line?
I don't recall any Halloween episode of Family Matters, to be honest with you. So we will have to see.
Okay, I'm excited for that in the future then. In the future, we have to come back to this question, and I want to know how you feel.
Yeah, because I think Family Matters belongs in that tradition of sitcoms of like, oh, we got to do a Halloween episode, we got to do a Christmas episode, we got to do a Thanksgiving episode. I like that. It's very comforting because it has a very current event timeline thing about it. So we'll see as we recap this show for the next 10 years.
It's going to be 10 years of funny Urkel moments. We're going to be snorting by the end of this.
I hope so. And I'll probably want to snort cocaine after season 5 just to get through it. All right, dear Delici listener, where you can find us. If you're a present Delici, if you're a prospective Delici, come on now. Listen, subscribe, follow, rate, and review the Delicious Recap wherever you get your podcasts. Questions, comments, concerns, anything you have about this recap, whatever, the Delicious Recap at gmail.com. We are on Instagram, Threads, Reddit, and TikTok, all at Delicious Recap. Andrew, you do a fantastic job of making sure our social media is great, because I hate it.
It's okay. Social media is a beast, but it is fun. So I would love to interact with y'all on there more and more. So just keep interacting with our posts. Share our posts. Share things with your friends. It's free. It's free to share it. That little click helps us so much.
Yes. Word of mouth is a big, big part, can be a big, big part of a podcast success. So if you like it, and if you know some family members or friends or a significant other that also likes Family Matters, and you think that they would love this, come on, share it. We would appreciate the support. We're on YouTube at The Delicious Recap. You can view our videos there. And please, God, I beg you, if you want to feel special and have episodes given to you earlier than the general public, and if you want some behind-the-scenes conversation access, patreon.com/delicious recap. Sign up. I believe it's only $5 a month. That is the equivalent. God, what can you buy for $5 these days, Andrew?
I was going to say air, but they threatened to cut off my air yesterday. So my oxygen supply is going to be cut off. I'm sorry, you guys. Nothing is as cheap as $5 in this world right now, okay? There's not even a dollar store anymore.
Yeah, I think that a McDonald's burger, maybe a Big Mac now has... Actually, no, I think a Big Mac is maybe $7 or $8. We are less than a Big Mac these days. It used to be that a Big Mac was like $1.99 or $2. But yeah, no, I think you get a Big Mac, you're spending damn well near like $8 or $9 now.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I know it's $5. A large fry and 4 packets of salt.
There you go. So if that is a good deal for you, equate our Patreon with that.
Yes, because we won't give you heart disease. French fries will.
There you go. There you go. For $5 a month, you will get a nice, healthy dose of Family Matters and behind-the-scenes access fun. Patreon.com/delicious recap. And Andrew, what are you laughing about?
Oh, I just cracked myself up because I was going to say you could either get a heart attack and get French fries, or stay healthy and listen to us.
It makes sense. It makes sense. Spend that money killing your heart, or spend the money giving yourself 10 more years of life and listening to Family Matters and behind the scenes recap goodness. Patreon.com/delicious recap. How can they follow you?
Okay, you can follow me on TikTok at Ajay Vandertunt. I'm sorry, I made myself cry.
It's okay.
You can follow me on TikTok at Ajay Vandertunt. My last name is Vandertunt. It's VANDERTUNT. I'm the only one in existence on social media on any platform. So just look it up and you'll find me. And I will be happy to interact with you. Oh man, y'all aren't gonna hear this portion of it yet, I don't think, but we're about to go down to Atlanta. So I'll be tracking the journey on there. So if you don't hear that in real time and you're listening to this episode when it's posted, go follow our journey too.
Yes. Yeah, I actually want to talk about that in our little Patreon titty tickle post show, whatever we call it. So we're recording this on Monday, August 26th. So we're still on summer break before Family Matters season 2 recaps officially get released. So by what, Tuesday, August 27th, you'll hear about us going to Atlanta, and that'll be a great time. I'm looking forward to that. Can you guess, Andrew, what our next episode is?
Oh my God. Feel like I should know the title of this and I'm in a blank because I'm still laughing inside.
You already know what character is going to be introduced this next episode by the title. Season 2, Episode 8, Cousin Urkel. We're already introducing Myrtle.
Myrtle.
Can you believe it? I mean, my God, like just the other day, I was watching like grown ass season 9 Myrtle trying to hump Eddie into oblivion, and now we're being introduced to Kid Myrtle.
Okay, you're making me laugh even harder now because I was in my car today and I was like, this show started off with Louis Armstrong singing "What a Wonderful World," and
Yeah.
look at where we're at already.
A year later, we are at Cousin Myrtle. So you say that like, oh, there was too much Urkel in this episode. Well, I don't know if there's going to be as much Urkel in this episode because his cousin is taking over.
I mean, that's a completely different actress. So you guys, we're gonna get a relief from her.
God, oh man, Myrtle. So much to say about Myrtle. All right, so join us then, and Andrew, sign us off in a way that describes, I guess, both this episode and the upcoming introduction of Myrtle.
You know what? This episode itself, even though we both gave it low scores, it was delicious in its own right. It was tapioca pudding and it's still good. And that deliciousness will ring when we see Myrtle for the first